What is going on, you guys? Keith Carnes here, and I haven't been on YouTube since the unboxing of Grand Theft Auto 5, which I completed, and we'll have a review up momentarily. But anyway, I'm bringing you guys a video, as you see in the title description. The WWE 2K14 roster is really disappointing this year. I mean, they do have some really cool guys. Goldberg is definitely my favorite on the roster, but let's face it, they are missing a lot of people that should have been on there, and yes, with the exception that obviously we're going to have DLC, and majority of these people will probably be featured in the DLC, with some never coming to the game. Let's face it, why are we having to pay for these people that are on the roster and should already be in the game? I said this in last year's WWE 13, and I'll say it in 2K14. This is bullshit. Anyway, let's get to it. So I counted 11, well, more than 11, but there's a couple like teams in here and shit. So there's more than 11, but 11 total, including teams as a single unit. So number one is Rob Van Dam. Now I know Rob Van Dam hasn't been back for a very, very long time, but they definitely could have had time to put him on the roster. Now I know a lot of people are going to sit there and say, well, you know, hey, at least we'll get him as DLC. That's better than nothing. And you're right. You're absolutely right. I will gladly shell out some money to play as Mr. Monday Night. But let's face it, Rob Van Dam should have been on the roster and should have been part of the selling of the game. But Rob Van Dam I can kind of let go because he hasn't been back for a while, so they're probably, you know, updating his attire, and they'll give him to us down after a little after the game's released. But it's still ridiculous that he's not on the roster. Number two is one of the most shocking people that did not make the roster, and that's Fandango. Now, I'm not a huge Fandango fan. I still don't really like the character. I don't think he's ever going to really go anywhere in pro wrestling with the Fandango character. But Fandango is one that I was like, oh yeah, he'll definitely be in the game. I mean, for Christ's sake, he beat Chris Jericho at WrestleMania this year. What more can the guy do to get on the roster? Apparently beating one of the greatest superstars of all time is not enough, and at one of the biggest shows of all time. But Fandango, I guarantee, will definitely be in DLC as well as RVD. Number three is two guys that were in last year's game as, I believe, DLC, and they're now, once again, not in the game, but most likely will be DLC, are the Usos. Now, the Usos, I'm a big fan of these guys. I think they're very underused, and I think they're very underrated superstars. These guys have tremendous ability in the ring and should be tag champions over the Shield, but whatever. The Usos were left out. Very, very ridiculous. They should have been a guarantee for on the starting roster, seeing that we paid for them last year. So having to pay for the same guys yet again is going to be real bullshit if they're even DLC, but they may not even be in the game. I don't know about them. Number four is three guys, is the Wyatt family. Now I know I can kind of let them go too. They haven't been in the company for too long, but they shouldn't have been DLC. They had plenty of time to put all three members in the roster. But kind of like RVD, I won't mind paying for them too much because they're new and I've never used them before. And even though Rob Van Dam isn't new to the games, he wasn't in the last two titles, I don't think. So it'll be nice to have him back. Number five is one that should have definitely been on the roster that wasn't, and that's Big E Langston. He's had a pretty prominent role on the Raw roster with Dolph Ziggler and AJ Lee, and even though he's not with Dolph Ziggler anymore, he's hanging around with AJ, so he's still in the picture. He still does matches on Monday Night Raw. It's ridiculous he's not in the game. This is ridiculous bullshit, and I shouldn't have to pay extra money for Big E, but I'm sure he'll be in DLC. Number six is another really, really ridiculous one left out, is Curtis Axel. This guy is a future WWE champion, and the fact that he's actually left out of the roster, I mean, come on, he's the current Intercontinental Champion. That's not a title to put your nose up at. That's not like it's the Cruiserweight Championship or something small like that. It's actually a pretty big title with a very lengthy history of some of the greatest of all time holding it. Curtis Axel's dad was also Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig, who was a legendary Intercontinental Champion in his own right. Curtis Axel being left out is ridiculous. But will I pay for Curtis Axel? Absolutely. Do I think he'll be in DLC? Absolutely. Not a doubt in my mind. Number seven is two divas that should have been on the roster, and these are the Funkadactyls, or Cameron and Naomi. Now, I know these aren't really going to be on anybody's, you know, oh, I'm really pissed about them, but come on, they should have been in the game. They were in last year's game, but they weren't, but they were listed as NPCs. You couldn't play them, but they should definitely be making their in-ring debut in this game, but hopefully they'll at least be in a DLC pack. Another diva on my list, number 8, is Tamina Snuka. Now, this is a diva that's been in the company for about, 3 years or so. She hasn't really done anything memorable, but she has had plenty of TV time to a point. and there's no reason why she shouldn't be in the game. She should have been in the game years ago. But yeah, I can kind of get over Tamina because I don't really use the Divas too much, but she's definitely one I am gonna miss playing. Number 9 is Alicia Fox. She was in last year's game, and the year before that, and the year before that. Now all of a sudden, Alicia Fox is taken back out of the games. Don't really understand that move. Maybe she'll be DLC. Number 10 is Kurt Hawkins. Now I know Kurt Hawkins doesn't really have a place on the roster. He's always on like the small shows, getting his ass jobbed. But I'm just saying, Kurt Hawkins has a real kind of a cult-like following. Not myself. I don't see the big deal in the kid, but he definitely should be on the roster because, I don't know, he just wrestles, and I'd like to use him. You know, Kurt Hawkins, he's cool, but I think he's overrated, but there's no reason why he shouldn't be on the roster. It would also give us an extra person to use. And the last one is Rosa Mendes. Now, this is another diva. Rosa Mendes has been with the company for a while, and the last few titles, she has not been in one WWE game. Even when Epico and Primo were in as a tag team, she still wasn't in the game. So leaving her out yet again is ridiculous. Anyway, guys, this isn't a hate video. I'm definitely picking up WWE 2K14. I'm going to actually be pre-ordering it probably tomorrow or, you know, whenever I get to it. It ain't going to sell out like GTA 5. So I will be pre-ordering the Standard Edition. The Phenom Edition is not worth the extra money. And, yeah, so I will be getting this on release date. Hopefully 2K will release the info on the DLC, and hopefully the DLC will be worth waiting for and paying for. Hopefully it'll have RVD, Fandango, the Wyatt family, the Usos, Big E, Langston, Curtis Axel. Those are the ones I really, really want to see. So at least, hopefully those 6 make it in. Well, actually, it's more than 6 because of Wyatt and the Usos. But you know what I mean. Anyway, guys, this is the Keith Carnes. Hope you enjoyed this video. And that's about it. Peace. Peace.